Товарищи, я говорю с вами во время больших перемен. For years, NATO, led by the United States, has imposed their sanctions, built their military, and now pose an unacceptable threat to our country. During this time, our leadership has done nothing. No more. General Secretary Gorbachev has been relieved of his position and is currently in a safe place. NATO incursions have taken place into our territory. This our enemies shall regret. We have responded and have already beaten the Americans and their pathetic allies back. Our righteous anger shall not stop there. War Plan Z has been fully activated. The invasion of West Germany has begun. Be strong, my comrades. Zapapeiro! Hi, this is Paul, the Oaken Knight, and we have just escorted the evil twin version of Gorbachev as well as the evil twin version of myself out of the game room, and you're left with me, the Oaken Knight. We're going to take a look at Storming the Gap's expansion, Drive on Giessen, from the World at War 85 system from Lock and Load Games, which was designed by Keith Trachton. It's been a long time since I've done anything like this. A World War III campaign. I have refereed games in the past where we had probably a dozen different players playing over, maybe a couple months at a time, them plotting moves and resolving battles in miniatures format. And here, Lock and Load has provided us with a toolkit where we can do the same thing with cardboard, although they also have provided conversion data so that you could actually do this with miniatures if you so chose. But for us, what we're going to do is take a look at Drive on Giessen and create a campaign for it and just kind of see how it goes. Probably the best way to look at Drive on Giessen is that it is a toolkit that you can use to construct your own dynamic campaigns using the Storming the Gap game, as well as the units provided by the expansion itself, as well as anything else that comes down the road in the future. To prepare for my campaign, I've done a few different things. First thing is I scheduled an order of battle for the campaign. You can see this would be day one, early morning. This would be Soviet forces. Everything on the sheet is Soviet. It's organized by formation as defined by the base game. So, for example, here is the 10th Recon. This would be a battalion, and these would be various companies within. So it has a T-80 company, BTR-60 company, actually two T-80s, two BTR-60s, three BMP-1s, and so forth. And these are going to be, since they are early morning, day one, these are going to be starting forces. And likewise, we've done that for all the other things that are going to be in the game. All the other formations are going to be in the game, both that are starting, as well as, say, for example, here's some Czechoslovakians coming on day three. And that would be these guys driving the T-72s and T-55s. Oh boy, T-55s, that'll be fun. So I scheduled the order of battle, which is one of the things you're going to have to do when you create your own campaign. Second thing, I decided I wanted to vary the training levels from the game itself. They do provide, of course, cards to represent the formations that are picked. The formations are picked via card rather than by chit pull. So I wanted them to be different in some cases than the standard campaign. So I went ahead and fired up Inkscape and learned how to make cards. So here's an example of a card that I made. This would be the 3/4 ACR, and here's the morale level, and as far as the control radii for when the headquarters is undamaged and damaged. Here's a Soviet unit. So that would be 3rd Battalion, 117th Regiment, Guards Motor Rifle Regiment. Yes, sir. And here's their quality levels on cards that I made myself. The other thing that I did is made the counters. So on the campaign map, you need to have some counters. Now, you could just put the actual units or some kind of made-up counters. I decided to go ahead and make up some counters. Oops, wrong. So here's an example of a counter that I made. And this lines up, the color is the formation's color that are actually on the formation card, and the stripe that's actually on the unit. So, and I went ahead, if you look at, to make the counters, I used Stuka Joe's technique of using PowerPoint. So, worked like a champ. You do have to fuss a little bit getting everything to line up, but once you get used to it, you can make your own counters and just print them off on photo paper. I used some spray adhesive to put them on the counters themselves. It was just a flat sheet, and then I simply used a rotary cutter to hand cut them and clip the corners, and this is what you get after you do that. It's kind of nice. All right, so let's talk about the situation for the campaign. The premise for the campaign is that it is medium-ish sort of alert level, whereas the Soviets could have attacked out of the barracks is one option, or they could have lined everybody up on the border and had everything all set and exactly where they wanted to be before the attack, with the corresponding increase in alert levels by NATO. So I shot for somewhere in between. I'm theorizing that, well, the Soviets, they are doing a semi-prepared attack, and as such, the Allies have a semi-prepared defense. So, for example, whereas the training for the Reforger units was to get them into Europe and in their tanks and equipment within 3 days, we're going to start having some Americans show up on the morning of day 2. Which means that they had a 2-day head start. They had an idea that something was up, and they thought it was serious enough to go ahead and pull the trigger and get guys going to Europe. Soviets, they have a lot of strength on the border, but they don't necessarily have everything on the border. It's an in-betweenish attack scenario. The campaign has some element designed for 2-player, but I think just by being an honest broker and with the intent of just having some fun, I don't see any reason why you can't solitaire your way through this. Some things you might not want to do for like recon missions for jets because you know where everything is. Or you might want to do the recon missions and then just have some die rolls determine what each side does at the highest level. As far as tactical execution on the game maps, there is a solitaire system that it was included in the Kickstarter, and I think I maybe give it a shot. Probably have the Soviets controlled by the solo system, and I'll control NATO as far as the tactical resolutions, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. Here we have a collection of units that are on the border for the Soviets. So here's their helicopter base, and we got the aviation unit, helicopters and such. And we've got, here's a Guards Artillery Regiment, or excuse me, battalion, Guards Artillery. And Guards Recon, those guys are good. As well as Guards Motor Rifle and Guards Tank. Now these Guard Tank guys, these guys are the good stuff. We got a lot of T-80s up here. Each one of these has 10. I would say, man, the Allies might have about 6 or 8 tank units on the entire front right now. This one guy has 10. So it doesn't necessarily look like there's a lot of counters here, but there is a lot of strength. Put the campaign together so that the Soviets start strong in the beginning, but they don't receive a lot of reinforcements. They don't get anything until day 3, and even then it's going to be the Czechoslovakians that are a mixed bag. The Allies, on the other hand, don't have anywhere near as much stuff on the map from the beginning. It's mixed formations of Germans in the north, Americans in the south, aviation assets back from the front, and I have given them a small amount of preparation. Each area is going to have one unit of mines, which of course being one player, they're going to be on the map. So prepared mines are secret in the game for real, but I'm just going to do the best I can with it, as well as a dug-in formation counter, which can be very helpful to keep a unit alive as if it's exposed towards the front. So again, small amount of preparation for the Allies, not complete surprise, but you know it's not complete preparation either. All right, it's day 1. It is early morning. And I'm going to go ahead and start bumping through the steps for the campaign, day 1 morning. The first phase of the campaign turn is to deploy your air recon units. Each side gets 5, and you get to put them wherever you want. So here I'm showing the Soviets reconning places where they are uncertain of where the NATO units are, and I've done something similar with the NATO air recon units. They know they're in those entry areas, so we put them all there. But since we have 5, we doubled up on Giessen, which is the closest to Fulda. So it would make sense that if they're going to be strong somewhere, they probably are going to be strong there. Then the reconnaissance is executed on the recon table, and the air recon table is here. And you can see that anything can happen. You can get anything from getting a lot of information about what's in the area, or you could even have your air recon shot down without a report. So I went ahead and did that. Oops. I went ahead and did that and got the following results. Of the Soviet reconnaissance, they did very poorly. They only had enemy present indicated in zones 1 and 4, which is here and here. So they know NATO is here. They don't have any reports they have a positive report that nobody is here. So they know nobody's here. These two guys were both shot down. So they're, for the rest of, at least today, they're gone. Now, one of the things we learned in this set of rules is that they don't necessarily spell out all the details. So, for example, it doesn't say anything about when and if you get these back. And so it's really the scenario designer's call as to how that's going to work. My call is going to be these guys are going to get to roll to come back during the night turn at the end of each day. So these guys are gone for day 1, and they will get a chance, but no guarantee of coming back for day 2. So right away we see the Soviet reconnaissance capability has been degraded significantly. Now, NATO, on the other hand, rolled marvelously. They know the number of enemy formations that are in each and every one of the 4 setup zones for the Soviets. So they know where they're big, they know where they're small. They don't know what's there. They didn't get any information as far as what are in those zones, but they know how deep they are. So that's the result of the air recon for this turn. Okay, here we are looking at from the Soviet point of view after their first move on the strategic map. We see airstrikes have been allocated. They have four aircraft. I'm just putting 1 in each of the 4 target zones. So everybody's going to have some air support. We had a number of division level assets that were allocated, and this being one of them. This guy is actually physically moving as part of this attack. But if we look a little farther down the stack, we see an artillery piece. This guy is actually going to be doing off-board artillery. Physically, he's over here. His headquarters is here. But he's going to be shooting here. This particular artillery piece is going to be shooting here. They have a range of 1 zone. So we're going to have one guy shooting here. We're going to have guys shooting over here. Then the helicopters. They are also based from Giessen. And what we do with them is likewise, their headquarters stays there, but they fly out of there and get allocated to attacks. Their range is 4. Now, what I want to do is to decrease the number of turns they're on the map based on how far they have to fly. That is not in the rule book, but I think it makes sense to me. If you're flying, they have a range of 4, and if they're flying 4 zones, they have less time to be on target. So what I'm going to do is if they've only flown 1, they get to be there the entire time. If they've flown 2, they show up on turn 4 on the tactical map. If they've flown 3, they show up on turn 7, and if they've flown 4, they show up on turn 10. So that's what I want to do. Physically, they have to turn around and land back at their base, but they fly out. They have their mission. The longer they fly, the less time they have on target. When they're done, they return back home again, so they don't physically stay in the target zone. All right, we had a number of attacks going on here for the Russians. For the Allies, for NATO, same thing. We had 4 aircraft, 4 of which are A-10s, one's an F-111. So I just denoted it by making the F-111 upside down. That's the F-111. The other three are A-10s. We had helicopters fly out of their headquarters here. We have a lot of support going to these two zones. They're going in at range 2, so they are going to be showing up on turn 4 on the tactical map. No real moving around. We found out that NATO discovered that the strength for the Pact, for the Warsaw Pact, is in Giessen and Tiefenhof. So there's no need to go out to the flanks. The punch is coming up the middle, at least near as we can tell. And back here we have various anti-aircraft units. They have missile units, chaparral units with a range of 60. They can shoot, they have to have a range, if they got a range of 35, they can shoot one zone over. They do, so they can. So these anti-air units are actually supporting the units at the front from where they are. And they're also supporting the helicopters, which also has its own anti-aircraft unit. It has a Vulcan anti-aircraft unit with it. All right, and likewise here we have this, the Germans have an artillery piece that will fire in support of these guys as an off-board artillery piece. Okay, with that, I think we're going to wrap this segment. We've introduced what we're doing. We're going to pick up with the first fight in the next video. Until then, guys, this is the Oaken Knight. Paul, thank you so much, and have a pleasant evening.